everybody. How's it going for the latest edition of our episode of 4th and 4? Zach Kyleman in, as always, as we're getting ready for Week 9 in the NFL. We have officially crossed into the halfway point. Well, we're now at the front end of that. We're at the halfway point. It's Week 9 officially. No more dancing around it as I've done in the past, as things are starting to heat up. Playoff pictures, again, continuing to slowly morph for the first time, that is. And trades are a big part of this, as I'll bring in really only one person this week. We had unfortunately one incident that we wish Kelsey the best with, and then Jim couldn't make it for this one. So I'm bringing in DJ here to help me side by side. It's 4th and 2.
It's about halfway through the season. We got about half a crew today as well, too. But we still got a full show full of fun as well, too. Not going to miss out on anything. It's going to be the dynamic duo today, but you're not going to miss out on a whole lot because we still got plenty to talk about.
You'll still get your whole show. You'll still get your picks from everybody on here when we get into our fourth quarter. You'll still get even the fantasy segment. Jim set it up completely, so we'll give you all the stuff he has, and we'll just debate it all as we jump on and go along our way. So let's get it on, shall we? Quarter number 1, as I suggested, of storylines of the week. Basically, the main storyline around the NFL is your big-time NFL trade deadline. Lots of splashes this year. Feels like it's much more than it has been in recent past. A lot of stars moving places, a lot of pieces and parts going which way or not. And I mean, some of these were done before even this week, like Christian McCaffrey's, of course, we already have talked about, but like the Tuesday's deadline, we're talking right up to the edge of it, saw a lot of action. Guys like Roquan Smith, Bradley Chubb going, Chase Claypool, TJ Hawkinson, Jeff Wilson from the 49ers, people actually moved. Calvin Ridley's contract is moved. It doesn't matter this year, but that's something you got to think about down the road. I'll throw in Kadarius Toney as well. Like I said, you name it, a lot of people going different places. I'll tell you, DJ, I'll be a little more casual than like throwing it we usually do, but like I gotta be honest with you, this is recent memory. I can't think of something that's rivaled the NBA's own trade deadline in some time that the NFL's done. So this is pretty significant this year.
It could be, I didn't fact check this, so don't hold me to it, but I did see something that said that I think there was north of 20 trades since like the start of like the off season, like that's not the off season, like training camp, summer camp, that sort of thing. And the trade deadline, which was the most we've seen in a very long time as well, too, which is crazy because you normally think 1, 2, maybe 3 trades here or there. In recent memory with the Rams saying, them picks, maybe you get up to 5 or 6, but getting north of 20 and some big name movers too, which we'll talk about in just a second here. But it wasn't just the casual, like, oh, he might contribute a little here. Oh, he might make the practice squad. He'll be a cool special teams guy. No, we're talking about guys that just signed $100 million contracts that just got traded to. They got signed and traded and got a bag too. So I thought this was really significant. I'm curious to see what it does to the playoff picture moving down the line too, because we know we're getting a little bit of that rough clay of how it's going to look, but there's still a lot of spots, a lot of moving pieces, and some teams they tried to move themselves ahead of the pack, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Yeah, there are a lot of movements I think that you'll see that I think a lot of teams going all in, which I'm like, well, that's good for you, but that can't mean everybody's going to be getting this. And let's go down the line. We can mention as much as we want on any one of these trades. And I'm saying, and I'll mention this as a caveat. Bears made 2 trades that that came on the Tuesday deadline. Or within the Tuesday deadline, day apart. So this isn't because I'm a Bears fan. This is because this is news. Just laying that out there for you people. So we'll lead off. Roquan Smith traded to the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens get, of course, Smith. In exchange, they give over linebacker A.J. Klein and then a 2nd round and 5th round pick for 2023 in that place. I've said all I've said about this one. I get why the trade was made. It was half a year deal left. The two sides botched a contract negotiation back in August. I just find it more a shame that they couldn't get things done. But the Ravens get one of the top, and I don't care how you say it with off ball or whatever, it seems dirty. They get one of the top linebackers in the NFL alongside another top linebacker in the NFL with Patrick Queen that they get to deal with on the defensive front 7. So I don't know, but they're going all in is essentially what they're doing. And they get to decide that contract fate for him next year.
You could tell the Ravens, they kind of looked as like, all right, offensively, we already know it's basically Lamar save us and we're going to run the ball. So we need to stop people defensively. And we need to get our secondary to quit randomly falling asleep in the fourth quarters like they've done against the Dolphins and the Bills, etc. But if you get someone like Roquan Smith who will eliminate run games, his sideline versatility, his range is second to none. I know you just mentioned that term off-ball linebacker. It sucks because they don't get paid because they don't affect games like a left tackle, a corner, an edge rusher, quarterback. We know the main positions. I think a prime case in point, you look at the Colts, they paid an off-ball linebacker. He's played 5 quarters this year and hasn't made a big difference necessarily. So I get it, but at the same time, that's the best player on your team. It hurts to see him walk away, especially when you will be able to pay him. You got $101 million in cap coming up. You could have put a little bit of it towards your best player. So I'm in the same boat as you. I get it. I love Roquan Smith. My thought process during that draft was, all right, if the Colts can't get a Quentin Nelson for some reason, another team takes a guard above number 6, Roquan should be your next choice because he's a defensive captain. He can blitz. He's got range. Pass coverage, he's pretty good. He's not like elite. He's not Fred Warner pass coverage, but he's got a nose for the ball. So Baltimore's defense, I expected to the back half of the season to really step it up. And for the Bears, I get it. You have so many holes at one linebacker who, even with one of the best linebackers, you're 25th in the NFL against the run as it is. You have a lot more holes. So I get it for both sides, and the Bears won't admit it. Then the fans, you can speak to this, they never want to accept it, but it's kind of a real retool next 12 months as well. Not a full rebuild, but they got to retool, so they're trying to disguise it. But we know better. We know better. I get it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, like I said, the trade's not, for me, the trade was never an issue it's less of an issue to me because of the fact that, they couldn't get it to work. I don't care who you blame. I think that both sides, as much as some people are defending the organization at this, I think the Bears just have as much to blame because this is a pattern for not getting this stuff done. It goes back to Allenson Robinson a few years ago. So I don't fully say it's just Roquan because he's negotiating his own deal. I do think there is a little bit that the organization tried to find a way to get some of their own under the table. So that's my opinion. You can hold what you want. I'm not leaving the Bears on the throne with this whole thing like they did all good. So that's just me. Maybe I'm bitter. I have no idea. But it sucks because you leave an all-pro guy and a captain, which has been mentioned in other post-trade interviews with like Eddie Jackson and Jalen Johnson, that you let one, he was a captain in the building. He was well-respected. Team loved him. Was a good teammate according to everyone that they've talked to. So that's where it hurts. But as they've also said, though, they're trusting polls at the moment for what is future building. This does help with that. And it kind of leads into, well, our next trade. Because within 24 hours, they then pulled the trigger on going what most people thought the Bears needed was Justin Fields needs more weapons. They took a second-round pick, not the Ravens one, though. They took the Bears one and traded it for Chase Claypool. In exchange, well, it's just for a second-round pick. That's all the Pittsburgh Steelers get. They get wherever Chicago lands on the board, they get to move up. My thoughts quick. Again, I'm just doing this because it kind of connects back to back here. I like the receiver choice, but as I've stated, I don't like how high the pick is. It's going to be a lot of proving ground material for Chase Claypool. Also, my other angle on this is it's a 1.5-year rental if he doesn't play well. So you have to consider that a lot of pressure in these next 9 games is going to come down to Chase Claypool syncing up and performing well with Justin Fields, because once again, after this year, you're back into contract negotiations again with the player. I just said why I have possible issues with the Bears negotiating fringe contracts with stars that are on that line. So it has to go well. Otherwise, though, athletic freak. There's been stats about him not getting as much deep passing yardage and potential, which Justin Fields needs to have that, and Claypool will get that in this offense. So that stuff's there. You're just banking a lot more, and there's more pressure because of the stock he gave up for what Claypool has done over 2.5 years.
I'll agree with you on that. I think they should have given up the Ravens pick. I think them giving up their own pick, I wouldn't have done that if there's a way to do it. Obviously, there was a rumor that the Patriots actually offered a lot more, but the Steelers just said, we're not giving you to the Patriots. They just basically said, no, we're not doing that. So at first I hated the trade. Chase Claypool since his rookie year, has underperformed, you could say as well, too. He's been more known for his TikToks and talking and barking at Browns fans in the stands than he has for necessarily what he's done on the field. But the more I thought about it, he's 24 years old. He's 6'4" and runs a 4.4. He had 10 touchdowns as a rookie, and it kind of burst on the scene when Ben Roethlisberger was still throwing the ball down the field before he basically withered down the back half of that season and fell apart. Justin Fields loves that deep ball for better and for worse sometimes. Sometimes I wish he'd throw a drag route, but some of those deep balls he can just let rip. How nice is it going to be when you're letting it fly to a 6'4" guy that still has to work on going up to get it? Because I have seen him get out jumped by a 5'10" corner this year. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But he can run by people. He can go up and get it. He still has that ability. But at the same, it's compared to throwing it deep to N'Keal Harry at this point. Like that just gives you, I think it's going to up his confidence. 24, they can grow together. It's not the same as when like the Bills got Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, or the Eagles got AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Like those were established. That's your dude. You're set. Everyone else is better. Chase Claypool's he's got a good niche. We'll see if it can complement everyone else. So they still have some work to do, but it does give you a lot more flexibility in that first round. Now you can go get a left tackle, maybe depending on where you pick, because you do have that young receiver to build with, assuming he plays well with Justin. If it's an absolute bust these last 8 games, then you're back square one. But you can get a left tackle, which you might need a right tackle, an offensive line anywhere whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that tight end from Georgia, if he slips a little bit, because Cole Kmet has disappointed since his rookie year, ironically, as well, too. He's kind of this year especially. You can get if there's a lockdown corner, like you have a lot of holes, and this gives you that first round flexibility and not have to reach for a position necessarily. So I get it. I do hope they still got some work to do in free agency, but this was a good step in the right direction. I think him and Justin Fields are going to look good together. Pickett's not a down the field type of thrower. Mitch Trubisky, well, you know darn well he's not really a down the field type of thrower, honestly. Well. And Ben Roethlisberger, that last year, it was catch, snap, throw, because he was A, couldn't move, B, the offensive line couldn't block, and C, he did not want to get hit anymore. He was 500 years old. He was tired of getting hit. So I think this is a much better fit. So it's grown on me over the week, if that makes sense. When I first saw it, it was what are you doing, Chicago? Mm-hmm. But now it's kind of grown on me a little bit. But
I'm bullish. I'm bullish like you. I think you can see him get a resurgence here. You know, like I said, reading up on kind of the play selection or route combos he was put in. You know, like I said, his 15+ yard combinations have been dropping in the last year and a half. So I'll give it that. You know, for this game coming up this week, by the way, they're saying he's projected a minimum of 10 snaps to 35. That could be either realistic or a smokescreen. We'll see. But I'm expecting they at least at the minimum start him, just getting him where he stretches the field and maybe gets opportunities where you're moving the defense out of the way for guys like Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet to get a few more, little less pressure on them to make plays as well. So
at least make the safety turn around, like glance in that direction. That's like, he's fine. The safety has to look in. The one thing he did well with the Steelers in that breakout rookie year that we haven't seen him do since then is those little underneath screens, like the one Peyton Manning used to throw to Demaryius Thomas all the time, or the one that Khalil Herbert scored on just against I think it was the Cowboys or the Patriots. I can't remember which one. It might have been both.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's like, the blitz is coming. We're going to throw a screen right into it. And that's one thing Chase Claypool is really good at, because he is such an athletic freak, and he ran those really well. So it's grown on me a lot. It's probably going to flop now because I've started to like it compared to where I was just even 72 hours ago. But it looks like a pretty good deal if, the stars align. We still got there's still
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, potential's there. So my final word is, I think there's potential. Like I said, it's pressure to perform, but it's in the right conditions, I think, to where you can make that turn into a diamond from that pressure. Mm-hmm. So we'll find out. I think guys also, it sounds like he's humbled a little bit since his rookie year, and maybe he's just ready to go out there and say, okay, I still am who I was that first season. Like, I can get back to that, just give me the right opportunities, and, don't give me a guy with a dead arm or someone that clearly can overthrow a deep ball every time. I'm looking at you, Mitch. I knew.
He get a TikTok off of his phone, and he's ready to go now. He's ready to roll.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of more offensive weapons, we'll stay in the NFC North. This is also crazy. Interdivisional trade, first off. That one alone. What? Sorry. The Minnesota Vikings, they traded for TJ Hawkinson. They also got a fourth round and a conditional fourth round. The first is for 2023, the conditional is for 2024. The Lions, in return, they get a second round pick for this coming draft, along with a third rounder for 2024. This is continuing, like, what will be the first of several now on this list post the Bears ones, and much like in the Ravens vein, it's all competitive, like win now mentality. If you look at Minnesota, they're clearly in the driver's seat of the NFC North right now, sans collapse. They have plethora of weapons, a young defense that's definitely stepped up this year under Hunter O'Donnell there. And Detroit, I mean, sure they have and they have T.J. Hawkinson who they can trade and get more assets. So I guess they're still rebuilding like always. But I think the only thing I had to ask was, uh, is that someone you let go of for the Detroit Lions for what you're building? And then I guess for Minnesota, is is getting a tight end like that enough to push you over the hump? You know, because I'll be honest with you, Minnesota to me has not had an offense that strikes in the fact of we'll use an offensive tight end like this.
I agree with you on that one. I will say for the Lions, I don't like it because you have young. I like TJ Hawkinson a lot. I think there's a lot of untapped potential there. He's already really good, and I think he could be really, really like he could be great potentially.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is he's a tight end, and you can get a return for him, like you saw a pretty decent return too for a tight end, which is that's not named Travis Kelce or George Kittle. So I get it, but at the same time, like he still has a 5th-year option on his deal and a couple of years left. Like that's a building block for you. But I think the Lions clearly learned even after their flirtation early on with like we're competitive again. All right, we got some work to do. This draft we still got some work to do, so we're gonna get back to the drawing board. I think and Jared got he wasn't really changing games for the Lions, so I get it. Even though I don't like it for the Vikings, I think they're gonna start using the tight end now. I mean, Irv Smith's inability to stay healthy, kind of, I think that might have been limited, but Adam Thielen's getting old. Unfortunately, we can kind of see it now. Like he's still a viable weapon, but he's not. Adam, are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs? Now he is feeling it. KJ Osborne, a little shaky. Justin Jefferson is still that dude, but there's no excuse for Kirk Cousins now. You have arguably the best set of weapons in the NFC, arguably. If not the best, it's like top 3, up there with maybe like the Eagles, and it's up there. You have an elite tight end who can stretch the middle of the field, especially off those play fakes, and he can block. I mean, you know how Iowa, the tight ends, it's required to block because it's a 1987 offense in Iowa at all times. So I think honestly, if they don't win 13 games at the rate they're going right now, it's a disappointment for the Vikings. Kirk Cousins had literally everything to where there's no excuse for him at this point. You have to win like 13 games because you have such a lead, and your division for the most part is kind of trash right now, at least by comparison. So there's 13 games, 12 to 13 is the threshold I'm holding the Vikings at, especially this. I think this makes them dynamic if Kirk doesn't poop his pants, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep in mind Kirk Cousins needs to stay consistent throughout and wins primetime games. That's something he's going to have to do
every game like it's 1 p.m. on a Sunday.
Please, yeah. Could he do that? Sans Chicago, we'll have him in Soldier Field some point. So don't, just let him lose there. But I agree. I mean, look, there's nothing else Cousins needs. They've been trying to get to this point since 2017, where they're saying, we want to get over that Super Bowl hump. They brought in Cousins to do that, and it took a little bit of a retool and several years of being we're good, but not like as good as we were then, to getting to this point. A new coaching regime, young talent on the defensive side, offensive weapons being brought in as well to reinforce that. And finally, after going through a full guaranteed contract and getting another extension, he's finally got everything, at least I think, to where you can clearly say there is no excuse anymore. If you can't at least get to the NFC Championship with this roster, you fail. If you don't win the division, well, I don't know what happened is what it'll be. It'll be like the end of the season. We're going to be sitting and going, how did this fall apart? So Hawkinson's trade is for that. I also I didn't fully space this, but you're right. With Irv Smith being down on IR, it's almost like they're saying, let's replace that production right away. And then even if Irv comes back next year, we'll have 2 healthy, decent quality tight ends that we can throw to or use him blocking. Hawkinson, I haven't heard anything terrible about his blocking, at least on his end, so at least if he fits the system where Dalvin Cook can still thrive, that works too.
Exactly. And he's not George Kittle, but he's not Darren Waller. So he splits the difference with blocking, I guess. Like he'll stick his nose in there. So I like it. It's a great fit. And I'll just round out this trade topic. If you put Justin Fields on the Vikings, they're winning 12 games. So Kirk Cousins, you got to win 12 to 13, considering Justin Fields is an abused second-year player at this point. And I guarantee he wins 12 to 13 games in that offense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, without a doubt. I think so. Yeah, Vikings will be an interesting one to watch. Hawkinson's production, like I said, if they dedicate some passing to him and make it where the tight end is an active part of this offense more often, he can be a damaging threat. And Justin Jefferson can definitely reap the rewards a little bit more than he already does with Thielen on the other side. So time will tell. Here's one of the more interesting trades of this cycle, and this one I think deserves a lot more conversation than it got. Calvin Ridley got moved. Remember, folks, Ridley is suspended for a full season due to a gambling incident in his past year when he was away from the team for personal reasons. So he's not back till next year, but he is moving to Jacksonville when he is reactivated. Now, nothing has been said that he isn't going to not come back. It sounds like he was expecting to come back before that came down, or when the NFL got that ban on him. So he gets to sit on the sidelines knowing he gets to move to North Florida next year, where the Atlanta Falcons get to move on and get a 5th and 2nd round pick. However, that is all based on a bunch of conditions, by the way. You know, if we're talking elevated conditions of if he starts, if he is a starter for a certain amount of games, if he's activated at this specific time, if he signed on to an additional deal. I mean, there's a lot of things in this. It kind of comes off like the Wentz trade, except I think it's more on just him showing up to work is what they're betting on, because the way he left like mid-season 2021 and how things were progressing into the offseason is I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out. I do think he comes back, but we'll have to it's fascinating to watch, because if he does come back, the Jaguars next year, you know, they had a bunch of premise and they've been close in all games so far. They're pretty close to being where they could just need to get over the hump of finishing games at this point.
Absolutely. I did see it. This is another one. Not saying I didn't fact check this, but I thought this was funny, where they said part of the reason Calvin Ridley got suspended was betting. And one of them was because part of the parlay was he had the Falcons beating the Jaguars. If that's the case, that's hilarious. I don't know if that is the case, but that'd be funny if that was how that happened. But I like the trade for the Jaguars, especially with all those conditions, because you cover your own, you know what. And if he does come in and play, you got a Pro Bowl receiver who had like 1,300 yards his second year and double-digit touchdowns. He was outperforming Julio Jones before all the injuries kicked in. You pair him with Christian Kirk, who he's a receptions machine. He's overpaid a little bit necessarily, but he's a receptions third down machine. Evan Ingram, who's still Evan Ingram, but he still can make plays. Travis Etienne, who's come out like a bat out of you know what. He's come on really strong. They're doing the opposite with Trevor Lawrence. Then I hate to come back to the Bears, but I wish they do what they're doing. They do that for Justin Fields, which maybe they will this offseason. But they're giving Trevor everything you need to succeed. Like this year, obviously, they're just trying to be competitive, and maybe next year's when they make that jump. But they're giving him everything he wants. If he is the prince that was promised at quarterback, he will show it in this next year or so. We will see it, and they'll be the favorite in the AFC South next year if he is as good as advertised. When you look at all the quarterbacks from that class, it's been shaky for all of them for one reason or another. He was the sure thing, so they're doing everything right by him. You have a great coach. You have the best coach in the division, arguably. At least probably pretty close. Not the best running back, because running back's not division. That's ridiculous. You have arguably the best receiving core now. You're deep, like they're doing everything they can for him. So I kind of like the trade, especially with all those conditions. And if you're Atlanta, you don't throw the ball anyway. You're down 28-7 to the Bengals, and you're still running the ball. You're wasting Kyle Pitts. So why? At that point, they need to reload everything too.
We got Drake London too. You know, I mean, Kyle Pitts is definitely getting wasted in that offense a lot more so. But
Drake London, you just throw fade routes all day too, and I haven't seen a fade routes either one of them all season.
Seriously, I'm one of those fantasy owners that's getting burned by Pitts, by the way, because now I'm on this like trust like fence where it's like, do I play him or not? He gets one boom week, so I play him, but then he has a bust because clearly he's not that consistent right now. So. You know, damned if I do, damned if I don't.
Spain without the S.
Dude, you are not wrong. But yeah, good comparison, by the way, because that is exactly what I think Jacksonville's like this year for them. They're loading up on offensive talent, and they'll have more so next year. But their pressure's on. Okay, your defense is garbage. You also have a lot of assets next year for the most part. It's time to spend a bit more on that if you can build that up so you guys can, win more games, at least hold on to more games. Because, I mean, there's been several instances this year, early and even now where it's like, okay, we have the lead. We just need to finish these teams off. So they're right on the threshold. And I think Trevor Lawrence has gotten some decent development this season. He's still making one or two mistakes that I'm like, that's something you need to wash out through year 3. But not too shabby for first year under Doug Peterson, at least. They seem to be giving him at least enough situations where they should be able to win if they can just hold on to games.
Absolutely. I always kind of, even when me and Kelsey did the preseason prediction, I said he gets a pass this year because even if he does develop, most of it has to be undoing what Urban Meyer did. Like he gets a COVID year, quote unquote, like we saw in college. He gets that in the NFL, an Urban year, if you will. to wash it off. But now with what they've done, I think the amount of talent they've given him with the coaching and what they've done around him kind of washes away that, if that makes sense. Now he's right back to normal trajectory where, as you mentioned, year 3, I want to see a Pro Bowl level jump with how touted you were, how much talent you have. That's what I want to see, like that you strike a little bit of fear in the defenses a little bit as well, too. Not just where they're calling you sunshine and that. I want to see him. I want to see him spark a little bit next year. So I like what they're doing, and I think that the AFC South is still runs through Tennessee, but Tennessee's kind of they're holding strong because it's a bad division, but they're still going on a downward trend, if that makes sense. Like you can only run Derrick Henry to have him save you for so many years. He's not, unless he's going to play till he's 45 like Tom Brady. But so I think the division's going to be up in the air, and they have as good a chance as anybody.
They need it for the Titans. They just need to hope that Malik Willis does produce at some point, because
We'll find out.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's weird because Tennessee is kind of, to me, it's like they're good now, but the short-term prospects to me don't feel great just because aging RB, and you can't keep playing that system forever and be successful or get to a Super Bowl that way. You still need to have something explosive through the air to compensate. So you know what I'm saying.
They are way better than the sum of their parts, basically, as well, too.
Yeah.
Like they're some of their parts is way better than individuals. The last trade I do want to look at really quickly, I want to get your thoughts on as well, too.
Yeah.
We're looking at Bradley Chubb not only going to Miami, but getting the bag on top of it as well, too. Getting $100 million contract right after being signed. Does this to you? Do you think this is more of Miami going all in for right now, or is this where they say, we got Tua and we believe in Tua now? Brian Flores trying to get rid of him and bench him every other game is gone. We believe in Tua, so we're going to load up, make like a 3 to 4 year run. Or do you think they're saying, nah, this year we're going for it?
Nah, it's 3 to 4 years. Tua is definitely. I'll put it to bed. I think I'm fully on board with him. He's their guy. He's done enough with games this year that he's definitely their guy for sure. For them, I think it's really you want to keep up with Buffalo. You realize you got the weapons now to do it, and that you are going to be in this for the long haul in the East. You know, I don't know if the Jets are fully there yet. They got tons of questions with Zach Wilson to figure out before you can even argue that. So really, you're trying to look at Buffalo and say, okay, we want to go after Buffalo. This is their division right now with us kind of on the tail. And so what's the best way to do it? Well, Bradley Chubb, you brought him in. He's had a bit more of an upswing this year. Credit injury issues have plagued his rookie deal, but still tons of promise. So you give him money to where I think he's worth that when he's healthy. You just hope he's got to stay healthy and that your program keeps him healthy while he's there. So defensively as well, you can get a better pass rush, which quite frankly, here's something Miami definitely needs to have that's better for them, because moving forward, they'll have to adapt to this. Their pass game, they're on defense, it is atrocious. And it's something when I talked Bears this week, by the way, they give up 300 yards a game right now. That's no slouching number. So best way to deter that is getting somebody in the backfield to disrupt passes and throw things off and wackadoo. So Bradley Chubb, he's available. He was there. And the Broncos, frustrating year, and they realized, oh crap, we spent all this capital on Russell Wilson. We might want to start finding ways to help alleviate some of the issues with that, or try and, I wouldn't say a backdoor plan, but maybe they at least build to where they could eventually have a backdoor plan. So that's kind of where this comes from. I think this is just their best case scenario for value. And for the Dolphins, like I said, you have the parts. You can go win now. Maybe get a few more things in the next draft or two, but like, you have everything. Offensively, you are scary. You maybe need a better running back. Jeff Wilson may turn into that, but you're scary now. Defensively, short up a little bit of it, but quite frankly, you got a run game that's already intimidating. You just got to be better in the past to slow teams down. Otherwise, you're one of the best teams in the AFC right now, and you'll be a scary wild card team even if you can't win that division.
100%. I mean, they're undefeated in games that Tua finishes. That's all you really need to know at this point. That's how good they have been. The last one I'll have with trades before we get into your main storyline to watch, the underrated one, the last final minute trade of the day, Nyheim Hines going to the Bills for basically nothing. Zach Moss and a 6th-round pick. For the Bills, I love this trade because it gives you a Darren Sproles-esque figure in an offense where they just let everybody eat, basically. Versatility is key in that offense, and you're going to be running deep with Gabriel Davis, Stephon Diggs. Those safeties are bailing. You check it down to Nyheim Hines in space, there's 30 yards. Or you can do a read option with him and Josh Allen and Devin Singletary. There's talks of them getting a running back. I like Nyheim Hines a lot in that offense. I mean, he led the Colts in receptions when they had Phillip Rivers and was leading receiver at one point. And he's not going to do that with the Bills, but I think he's going to get a lot more there than he has the last 2 years when it's been the Jonathan Taylor show. So I love this last minute trade. And Very, very subtle trade for an absolute already juggernaut.
Yeah, Buffalo, they didn't need many things. And running back was coming up, but I think it's just because if you look at their running back core, Moss and Singletary are redundancies, and Moss was being kind of put in the, if you're talking card terms, he was being put in the barn. There was no reason to bring him out as much. James Cook was more the gadget, I would say versatile second back, but he's made mistakes this year, and that's part of it could be to a rookie season. So what do? Well, we want to go on a Super Bowl run. We are win now. We have, and I mean, if I say Dolphins are definitely in that space, the Buffalo Bills are at the top of that space with Kansas City right now. As in, we need to get our Super Bowl. We're getting our Super Bowl wins here and now. We have everything for the next few years. So, what's the best way to do that? And what little you need? Get rid of the redundancy you don't use, and use someone that you can maybe get versatile in your offense. Naheem Hines is that. He's an underrated receiving weapon in the NFL. People, I think, have caught on to that in recent years for fantasy football, but he is definitely a guy that you don't have to worry about as much with mistakes from, like, say, a rookie running back like James Cook. James can develop as he wants behind him, and Hines can go on to a team that is win now, and you can use those assets right now in the short passing game so that maybe Josh Allen doesn't have to scramble as many times. You got that guy who can make those cuts and make a 5-yard gain into a 15. So pretty solid pickup, and you only had to spend your extra running back, and a 5th-round pick on it. So for a win-now move, that's a really solid win-now move for a team that already freaks people out when we talk about them in matchups.
And on top of that, too, for Naeem Hines, you get to get out of that dumpster fire. There's the Colts, and you get to go to arguably the best team in the league as well, too. So it's a win-win for both of them now, and everybody gets to eat on that one. So I'm quite the fan.
Yeah. I'm very happy for him, honestly. It's a great move for the Bills. They're going to utilize him well. It's just, I mean, Buffalo, they're really on track. They're still my favorite to win the Super Bowl this year. It just made it better for my odds. So, I'm liking those odds. The odds to me have increased a little bit more.
I look forward to them and the Ravens rematching the playoffs with the moves they made. I think that's going to be a fun back and forth. But that's all we have for the trade deadline right now. But of course, we'd be remiss not to mention Zach's storyline to watch now. Zach, and you got one one that I think we can all feel a little bit.
Yeah, and it always is unfortunate when you hear about the passing of one of the top talents that have played in this league, Hall of Fame talent that is. Ray Guy passed away earlier this week at the age of 72. He is the only NFL special teamer. Well, he's the only NFL punter, I should specify, that has been put in the Hall of Fame. And really set a lot of trends. I did a little research this. Because I've always been fascinated. Why is Ray Guy the one punter that is in the NFL's Hall of Fame? It's because, like any Hall of Famer, you either are a winner, a stats freak, or you revolutionize the game. Guy did many of those things pretty much, and especially revolutionized the way we see punting. He was insanely deadly with coffin kicks. He was one of the first to perfect the high hanging ball, so that punts, not only are you burying players deep, but you're also keeping them from returning the ball as well. And he was a versatile threat. You see so many highlights of him actually doing special like fake punt plays and things like that. But for the most part, he revolutionized how we see that specific part of the sport. And I think also his passing also highlights, special teams doesn't get as much credit in the NFL Hall of Fame. Currently the main discussion on that is I'm talking about Devin Hester, who might be the next of very few that are special teams oriented to make a Hall of Fame bid and get their bust in Canton. And Ray Guy, for that regard, I think deserves that credit for saying, remember, it's a fully 3-phase game. There are players that make the third phase that important to the overall outcome, and his contributions to how the game's looked at and how that position plays today definitely needs to be recognized. So, we'll give a little more science before we transition to the second quarter here. But Ray Guy passed away this week, 72. Their family are in our thoughts, and definitely is a name you shouldn't forget, even for, like I said, the only punter in the NFL. That still means something.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely as well.
All right, moving on to the second quarter here, DJ. Let's get on with your best bets. Let's talk about all the discussions on the matchups. I'm all excited to do this. It's you and me only, so I think we might be able to spread the conversation out. Let's see how this goes.
Absolutely as well too. Glad you all are able to join us here. We'll see if we can win some money this week. Last week was a little bit shaky for us. We were really close to a few, not quite as much, but we're gonna try and win. We're gonna try and win some of that money back this week. First game we're gonna look at is the Colts versus the Patriots. Those who grew up in the 2000s, they know all about this game as well too in the early 2010s. Not so much the same. No, it does not have the same luster or esteem that it used to have. But for this one,
No.
the over under is 40.5. What did it say? Shocking turn of fates based on those times. I am taking the under in this one. Hey, Sam Ellinger, a young quarterback making a second start. Bill Belichick, we know how he likes to bully young quarterbacks. A really good defense for the Colts and a really shaky offense that's trying to run two quarterbacks for the Patriots. This game's going to be hideous. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be heinous. Nobody's going to want to get in the end zone, I imagine. And I think there's going to be a lot. It's just going to be messy. So give me the under at 40.5 for the Colts versus the Patriots.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at that. Honestly, it's going to be a little ugly. New England is sticking with Mac Jones, but as we've heard, it's the offense is not as explosive with Mac Jones, and Sam Ellinger is currently trying to establish if he is the guy over in Indianapolis. So you might not be set up for much of a fun game, but you're in for a game. I'll give you the kicking bet early. I wasn't expecting to do this early, but this one seems like such a slam dunk to me. Chase McLaughlin over 1.5 field goals made at plus 129. I don't know about you. That seems pretty good odds for a plus. I'm like, yeah, throw exactly. I saw that. I'm like, screw looking at anything else. I'm taking that. Like, this game's gonna play out that way. You're gonna get your to me. Unless McLaughlin has his worst game so far since he's been signed by Indianapolis, which he's been a surprise replacing Blankenship, by the way. You should definitely be taking that plus 129 on him. That's for any parlay betting. That's to me an easy leg. I think you can cover. So grab that one right now.
That might be your big. Like you've had some really good kicking bets. I think most of them have hit, but this one feels like the safest home run out of all.
You would know. That's why I'm seeing you throw the dollars. You would know exactly what I'm
Jason McLaughlin's been really, really nice. You get him in somewhat makeable field goal range, and honestly, I feel like this game's going to come down to field goals. So, I agree with you on that one. That's it. That seems a home run. Next, we're going to check in on Monday night. We're looking at Saints and the Ravens. The Ravens missing a lot of key players. Rashad Bateman injured. Mark Andrews doubtful. The Saints, Michael Thomas injured, Jarvis Landry beat up. Like they're both kind of a mess right now. That being said, winning margin, I'm going to go with Baltimore, but winning between 1 and 6 points, so less than a full touchdown at plus 305 odds. Not that I'm saying that both teams are even matched necessarily, but the Ravens don't really blow people out anyway. Like this whole season, even if they get a big lead, they give it up anyway. So I feel like this will be a closer game on paper. So give me Baltimore winning by less than a full 7 points at 305. I feel comfortable with that one.
Plus 500 odds for me goes to Kenyon Drake as the first touchdown scored for this contest. Look, Kenyon Drake's numbers have been going up and up, mainly because injury issues have forced him higher up on this roster since the beginning of the year. Gus Edwards is also dealing with some nagging injuries, which seriously, that core cannot seem to catch a break outside of Kenyon Drake for getting that. Also, with Mark Andrews dealing with some possible injuries, Kenyon Drake's a multi-versatile running back. That receiving core is also banged up. I think if you're going to find someone that you can get on the goal line that can either run it in or get a quick throw, I think that's not too bad. I also think the Ravens will, I think this is a matchup they can handle and get out of the gate early. So I'm taking him. If you wanted a different follow-up, I mean, Alvin Kamara, I wouldn't say is a problem either. I mean, dude's basically the main shining star on the Saints these days. So, pick one of those two. But I'm going Kenny Drake as my main choice for a TD scorer this one.
Absolutely. I like that one. Next one, we're going to check out Green Bay and the Lions, an NFC North battle. And for this one, for Green Bay, it's not just a get right game. It's if you're ever going to get right, now's as good a time as any. You're going against one of the worst defenses you will ever see. So I'm taking an odds boost of plus 555 for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Romeo Doubs to each get over 74.5 receiving yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown's kind of the lone wolf for the Lions right now, especially with Hawkinson gone. You almost feel comfortable he's going to find a way to feast just the role he plays. And if you're the Packers, everybody's got to eat. I mean, if you're making a fantasy team, you should start all Packers and feel comfortable because Aaron Rodgers has to get him going. They all have to get going. They want to have a chance at salvaging the season. It starts now offensively. And I think Romeo Doubs is kind of taking that number one spot right now as well, too. He makes more plays and fewer mistakes than the other ones. So I'm going to go with that one. So Green Bay and the Lions, what are you looking at as the fellow NFC North observer?
Fringe compliment for Dobbs because I'm going to also pick basically – I got two receiving bets I think you can hit on that I think are reasonable, although some of the people might say, well, I don't know, I might pick one over the other. If you want the more certain one, there's a plus 112 on Aaron Jones right now for 4.5 receptions. If you hit 5, you get that hit. There's a plus 110 for Romeo Dobbs to hit that same number. Personally, Aaron Jones has kind of been more of the carrying the load in every regard for this Packers offense whenever it's been needed. I would be honest and lean more towards Aaron Jones in this contest, but it is the Detroit Lions. Keep in mind, it is the worst defense in the NFL by far. So you might as well say, I feel like you could pick either one and you might land. But if you want some more certainty, go with Aaron Jones. I'll take him all day to make an impact. I don't see him not getting 5 catches and doing what he needs to.
100%. I feel like pick anybody on Green Bay and they should eat. If they don't, then it's concerning. You don't touch Green Bay with a 10-foot pole the rest of the year. This is even fantasy and in betting, all of that as well too. This is their get right game. Next, we're going to look at DJ's best bets, where we put together a fun little parlay here and take a look at some of the ideas we might be able to string together and win some money. Here's what we're looking at for this week.
Hello.
I like Chase Claypool to get an anytime touchdown. We talked about him earlier. Dolphins, bad pass defense. Chase Claypool, you could throw it deep to him. You could throw a screen and watch him run. Or as the Steelers did a lot, especially on, you can hand the ball to him in the red zone and he can get around the edge. If you traded to go get him, you might as well feature him at this point. I know Zach's thinking, yes, please. That'd be a great way to start your career with the Bears, is finding your way to the end zone. It's going to be a tough game against the Dolphins. I expect a bit of a mini shootout, and I think Chase Claypool can eat, or it's going to be a Dolphins blowout and a lot of garbage time. Either way, that should benefit Chase Claypool. Next, I got Terry McLaurin at anytime touchdown as well. Terry McLaurin and Taylor Heineke have a weirdly good connection with each other in a way that doesn't make sense. Minnesota's defense against receivers, not very good. It's actually pretty bad. For a really good team, they seem to struggle against the pass and defending receivers. So I like the idea of Terry McLaurin getting across the goal line and getting into the end zone. And the last one, I'm going with the Falcons money line, as they are underdogs, not just with points, but as the money line against the Chargers. When the Chargers are missing Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler's banged up, Jerron Carter's they're basically going with Gerald Everett and Joshua Palmer. And they are terrible against the run. I think in the 20s against the run still. And who runs the ball more than Atlanta? They run when they're down 28-7 against the Bengals. They will shorten this game. And I think the Falcons could come away with an upset. We're looking at plus 1944 odds. Not our biggest odds we face this year, but I think this one's a little bit more reliable. The questionable one is, does Terry McLaurin get in the end zone, or does he just get like 150 yards between the 20s? But I feel pretty good about this one. So I'm thinking this is a way we're going to try and win some money here. So that'll do it for quarter 2 with best bets. We're going to cruise now into quarter 3, talk about fantasy starts and sits. And we don't have Jim to join us with this one, so it's going to be myself and Zach going through these. We're going to cruise right through these as quick as we can. We're going to start with the quarterbacks here. And interesting set of quarterbacks here, Zach.
Yeah, interesting set indeed. I think this is more interesting because Geno Smith is being the one we're comparing. Who would have thought 10 years in Geno Smith is now one you can say, oh my gosh, this might be a good hit for my fantasy. Look, Lamar Jackson, there's no joke about him. We all know about Lamar Jackson, still a freak on the run, but is becoming more and more of a passer as the years go by for, well, I think obvious reasons. You can see the stats right here. Both have been able to hit decently. Although you see, though, Geno Smith, the yardage numbers have been helping a little bit more in his favor. Both averaging pretty close to that 20-point line right now from last week. And then this week, look, pretty similar stuff. It's kind of weird to think about. But you might have a choice on your hands if you happen to have both those QBs. Actually, and if I remember right, one of my rosters does have both these QBs on here. So I've been thinking, because Lamar he's had a few bust games recently that I think he's underperformed. I think this one's a little up in the air. I'll tell you what, though, if I'm looking at this matchup, I'm actually going to go with Geno Smith because more of his weapons are healthy. I think that he has a little bit more of the supporting cast needed, and I think he'll be able to do what he wants against Arizona. So I'm not, no offense to the Ravens, but like I said, when we talked about Kenyon Drake, a lot of their guys are banged up right now. This might be a weird week for them. I'm going to take Geno Smith here.
And for non-parity's sake, I'm also taking Geno Smith because I feel the same way. And Arizona is in the bottom 6 against quarterbacks in fantasy this year. And the Saints are pretty good defensively as well, especially when there's no receiving target that really scares them at this point, unless you're getting 26-year-old Deshaun Jackson instead of 36-year-old. So give me Geno Smith as well. So we're going to head over to the running backs now. And interesting set of guys who we expect kind of getting some split duty right now, Antonio Gibson and Michael Carter. I'll keep mine really quick on this one. I'm going Antonio Gibson simply for the receiving threat that he offers. And I think against Minnesota, I think it's going to have to go through the air, and I look for Antonio Gibson to get a few more snags. against Buffalo, I'm shaky taking anybody going against Buffalo, especially when Zach Wilson is your quarterback, the way he's been playing this last month.
The matchup alone makes me want to choose Gibson, but here's a little extra I'll give you on Gibson because I felt like he was being I felt like the Commanders were devaluing him. I know Brian Robinson when he got healthy was the shiny new toy that they drafted, but hear me out. Dude's production should have justified him having more plays like this. And Heineke returning, they have a similar deal like McLaurin. His connection, those guys just vibe better between each other. So Gibson's getting his reign coming back. More as a passer, though, but still, dude's talented. You don't leave that talent on the bench. You find ways to make him play. They finally found ways to get him to play and impact games. But yeah, Gibson's matchup against Minnesota, I'd be taking that all day instead of Michael Carter.
We're 2 for 2 on this one. This one, maybe we'll differ. We'll have to wait and see. We got Devontae Adams against Jacksonville and T. Higgins against Carolina. Two guys, T. Higgins kind of having to step up into that number one role without Jamar Chase, and Devontae Adams, well, just needs to try and wash that taste out of his mouth last week. And for that reason alone, give me Devontae Adams. He's not going to be happy about last week. I think he's come with a vengeance, and Jacksonville's a good get-right game for a offensive player. So give me Devontae Adams this week.
Yeah, geez, the Raiders have been needing get-right games, it feels like, all year for close losses or just like You're scratching your head a lot is what I'm telling you. I will give this one to Adams. However, you're not wrong to start either one. Hell, if you have a roster where you somehow landed both, Jesus, good for you. You should
if you have a
be
roster
starting
where
both.
you have to choose between the two of you.
Jesus, good for you.
If that that's better than my team, that's for sure. I wish I could pull that off, but
without a doubt. Yeah, no, either one, guys, you're not gonna, I don't think you'll feel bad about. I think, to me, Adams should have a better game. However, for now, more questions than ever, I think, about Derek Carr have been coming up lately. So, maybe if for some reason this one goes wrong, that's a red flag, but he should be having his numbers this afternoon.
This is karma for firing Rich Biscotti after he should have got the job after what he did last year in the intern, and then hiring Josh McDaniels. But I digress. We don't have enough time for me to go off on that rant. And so we're going to go into the flexes. The newly acquired Nyheim Hines for Buffalo taking on the New York Jets, and Kenyon Drake, as you mentioned, against New Orleans as well, with no J.K. Dobbins as well. I think Kenyon Drake's going to be nice, but give me Nyheim Hines in this one. I think as a flex option, I think New Orleans is going to key in heavy on the run to mitigate Kenyon Drake and Lamar Jackson. They're going to force him to throw. So I think Nyheim Hines, just the new toy, as you mentioned, he's going to be returning punts this week. I think there's something about when there's a trade and the new toy gets and you want to feature it. Look for Nyheim Hines to maybe catch a flare pass off of like a Josh Allen, rolling out to the right, then throwing back left, or some weird goofy, like the ones he throws to Dawson Knox all the time,
right,
and gets Nyheim Hines in the end zone.
Ironic that these two are our flex debate. If I do find this one a little hard, I'm going to go, for the sake of argument, I'm going to go Kenyon Drake because of the volume that he should be receiving. It's been pretty much up and up, or slowly upward, for him all year. And yeah, I do think New Orleans might try to stack it up, but they can't do. I mean, there's still some weapons that are healthier, so he'll still get open. Nyheim Hines, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm worried about first week getting into a new system. That's why. I do see him having potential if you want him as a flex, so don't worry about it. But I like Kenyon Drake a little bit more, but not too much. That's all.
You know what? Once again, if these are your flex options, pretty decent roster, I'd say as well too. I mean, considering neither one of them is in your start spot, so it's pretty good with there as well. Next, we're going to head over to the defenses, and a tale of two different tapes here. The Colts going against the Patriots. The Colts, one of the better rated overall defenses. Problem is, when you're on the field the entire time, you wear down a little bit as well. And the Lions, as we mentioned, absolutely terrible, but they have the beneficiaries of going against a terrible Green Bay team. And Zach, I think we kind of know where we're going with this one, but I'll let you take the first shot.
I'm sorry. I know Green Bay's been down this year. I know their pass offense has been atrocious, but you cannot. There is no way on God's green earth you're going to convince me that the Lions defense is a good fantasy option this week. It's Indianapolis. I'm sorry. I wanted to hold my chuckle back a little bit. This is where I'm going to chuckle. I'm not taking Detroit. No.
Unless Aiden Hutchinson is going to give you a 5-sack performance and completely destroy David Bakhtiari, I don't see how they're going to hold Green Bay under 30, because I think they should be able to eat with whatever they want. Aaron Rodgers has seen this team too many times, and as we mentioned, they have to get right this week. And I think Colts in New England, there's some questions going on in New England right now. Offensively, it's a little bit shaky. Mac Jones did throw a pick six that got called back, but that was a pick six that flipped that game on its head. So it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be ugly. The Colts will still probably lose because that team's a mess, but give me the Colts as well if I have to choose, because I would have dropped the Lions a long time ago. I don't trust them no matter what other team they're going against. And that's going to now take us to Jim's boom pick of the week, and he's keeping it local to North Florida. He's going with Travis Etienne, projected to get you 15 points against the Raiders after getting 22 last week over in London as well. And he's really come on strong these last few weeks, averaging about 7 yards a carry as well, too. So I like this pick, and the Raiders defense is not exactly known for stopping anybody whatsoever, not even a nosebleed.
No, and he's been electric so far this year. Ever since they decided to lean on and put James Robinson more towards the bench, they finally have him fully back healthy. He's what was advertised coming out of the draft last year. He's their future running back moving forward. Like I mean, their premier guy. That if you're going to talk about pillars, he's one of the pillars. Yeah, he should have a good game against Las Vegas, though. I have no doubt in my mind. Even with Vegas being surprisingly closer to the top 10 in run game in the NFL.
Exactly. And Doug Peterson loves throwing to the running backs. He did a lot in Philly, and I think he's going to do that a lot with Travis Etienne. And just goes back to mention what we mentioned with Trevor Lawrence earlier. They're giving you everything you can want at this point. You even got a boom pick of the week as well, too. So we'll see how that one plays out. But that will do it for quarter 3, our fantasy picks. So that's going to take us now to quarter 4, the primetime pick'ems. And you know what, Zach, I want you to brace yourself here because there was some movement last week as well.
There was.
Take a look at the numbers. Last week, DJ leading the way with an 11-3 record, but tied with Jim at 11-3 as well. Zach continues his above 500, I think, every week of the year so far. I don't think he's been below 500 yet at 9-5. And Kelsey is a rough one for him last week, going 7-7. Looking at the overall stats, Zach, first one to hit 70 correct ones at 70, 44-1. DJ is coming for you, though. 68, 46-1. I'm still in the thick of it. Then we split. Now, number 3, we have a little bit of a movement as we have Jim sitting at 3 as our graphics guy made a mistake here. Jim sitting at 60, 54-1 and finally passing 500. And Kelsey, after the rough week, stay at 59, 55-1. Graphics guy with a little bit of a mistake there. So very competitive across the board right now as well, too. And Zach, we're going to see if I can catch up to you, and we'll see if Jim and Kelsey can stay heated as well, too. And you know what? We're going to just go into the picks right away. First one, Monday night. Not a whole lot of parity here, actually. Looks like we are all on the Ravens for reasons you and I just talked about earlier as well. So looks like we won't see a lot of movement in the standings with this game.
Yeah, New Orleans, I think they got a few things to figure out. I mean, and credit, they've shown that they can upset teams this year, but I don't know if Baltimore's it. Plus Baltimore's adding also Roquan Smith into the mix too. Keep that in mind. And even with the injuries I mentioned, Gus Edwards and Mark Andrews are still either they're going to get snaps or they'll be projected possibly get snaps. So, like, there are weapons you can handle the Saints with. I just don't see enough for New Orleans for this.
We are on the same page. And you know what? If we thought we were on the same page for that one, we're even more on the same page for this next one. Is we got Kansas City taking on the Titans in the primetime Sunday night one, which unless Derrick Henry is going to give you 250 and 3 tuds, I think this one has blowout written all over since it looks like it's going to be Malik Willis's first start. And for all of Kansas City's defensive questions, they do know how to get after the quarterback as well as anybody in the league. There's a point when they were the team with the most pressures in the NFL. So the question isn't, is Kansas City going to win this one? The question is how much at this point?
Yeah, I'm less confident in Tennessee if you wanted to pick him in an upset just because Malik Willis is going to be put through the fire in this. And yeah, Derrick Henry, you know what the Chiefs are going to prepare for. It's Derrick Henry. You even listen to the audio last week, Mike Vrabel. You know what he always said? Hand it to Derrick. We'll win the game against Houston. That's all they did. They can't really do that this time around. Kansas City's defense it's not world beating, but it's still good enough to where they can hold you down on being one phased. Absolutely.
And a banged up offensive line, especially on the interior with the center, and Chris Jones coming to town. Not a good matchup. But this final pick we have here is the prime 425 game. And we have a little bit of variation on this one. And Zach, this one is all yours. Is you are the lone wolf believing in Tampa Bay. Is DJ, Kelsey, and Jim going with the Rams, and you're sitting strong on the Bucks. And honestly, I feel like this is it was difficult picking this one, so I went with the Rams. I just went with Cooper Kupp being injured. I am not very comfortable with it, though. Zach, what made you lead towards Tampa Bay?
Yeah, look, my angle on this, and this could be just because watching LA this year, I don't know, man. I see the Bucks having a lot of potential to make Matt Stafford's day a living hell. And sure, you could maybe say the same case for the Bucks, but the Bucks to me have a little bit more stable offensive line. Their problem has been about finishing drives. They have one of the worst third and long, at least averages in the NFL, to where they can't convert on those drives. If the Bucks offense can get in gear somehow, they still have plenty of healthy weapons. It's just they haven't been able to put things in motion as consistently this year. My thing is that if they can get enough pressure and force Stafford into what has been a surprisingly mistake-filled first half of this season, that they can get a win. But again, they have to move the ball. That's the only caveat to this whole thing. Can they move the ball enough?
Absolutely. This feels like a loser goes home and stays home sort of thing as well, too. A winner treads water a little bit longer. I feel like whoever loses this game is all but out of the race. Maybe Tampa Bay can lose and be fine because that division's shaky at best as well, too.
Yeah.
But the Rams lose, you're behind a starting the surge 49ers and a who saw this coming Seahawks as well, too. So the Rams are in some deep trouble if they don't get there, in the Bucks, they're kind of in some trouble, too. So this definitely is a game to look out for. The one other game I will highlight as well is we do not have a Kelsey's Island pick for this week. We do have one other island this week that I will point out. I'm the only one taking the Falcons, and I mentioned it in our best bets of bets, so I'll just kind of recap it quickly. The Chargers might be the most snake-bitten. They're the Clippers of the NFL. They're the most snake-bitten franchise of all time. They're missing probably 6 to 7 starters on the offensive side alone going to this game. Atlanta runs the heck out of the ball. They will control the clock, I believe, because they run it repulsive amounts. And I think defensively they could do just enough to keep the Chargers already inconsistent offense more inconsistent with I can suit up for them at this point if they need a receiver. I'll just go toss on a helmet and run a zig route really quick because they need somebody to go out there and catch the ball. So that's my upset pick of the week and the only other island this week. So we might not see too many changes this week in the standings depending on how it goes.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest, that game right there, you took the Falcons, and it's much like how it was with Bucks Rams. I almost did that just for because it's the Chargers. Look, on paper, this is how LA's been the last few years. On paper, oh yeah, they should be winning a lot more games than they are. If you put it down onto the pad, though, the games like this, I always find they tend to lose. So I put it on the side of this should be a winnable game given what the Chargers have, but I could see them losing this and going, yeah, this is typical Chargers. Is all I can tell you. Falcons, I mean, maybe they got a bit of swagger too. So take another home game. Rally yourself to 500.
Anything can happen as well too. And the NFC South has been just that wacky that it just might happen as well too. I mean, so it will definitely see how that one goes, but hopefully we'll see a little bit of climbing. Maybe I can hit my island and you don't hit yours, and I can climb a little bit of that gap and get that first place, but highly unlikely at this point. But thank you all for joining us this Sunday morning for 4th and 4. We appreciate you all hanging out with us to get your NFL Sunday started. We will see you all next week with more of our crew as well too. We appreciate you joining the dynamic duo. We'll see you guys again next week.